They handed my sister the keys to a brand new car on her 17th birthday. When I asked why I didn't get one, my mother looked me straight in the eyes and said, "Because you don't deserve anything." That's the day I learned blood doesn't always mean love. If you've ever felt like the invisible one in your own family, keep listening. This story might be the one you needed to hear today. My name is Haley. I was 16 when this happened. I've always been the quiet one, more focused on school, responsibilities, and keeping to myself. My younger sister Chloe, on the other hand, was the star. She was 15, loud, popular, always knew how to get what she wanted. My parents, Deborah and Greg, adored her. Deborah, my mom, was always cold with me. She nitpicked everything I did, while Chloe could do no wrong. Greg, my dad, just stayed silent. He never defended me, never stepped in. He just looked away. Chloe's birthday was a big deal. The house was packed with relatives, balloons, and a huge cake. Everyone was outside when my dad rolled a red car into the driveway. Chloe screamed with joy. She jumped up and down, hugged both of them like she had won the lottery. I stood there clapping along, trying not to cry. After the cheers settled, I quietly asked my mom why I didn't get anything like that for my last birthday. She didn't even blink, just looked straight at me and said, "Because you don't deserve anything." I felt like someone had punched me in the chest. Right there, in front of everyone, she said it like it was the most normal thing in the world. No one stopped her. No one looked shocked. It was like everyone had already decided I was less. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stood there, feeling like the air had been pulled out of my lungs. I walked back inside, went to my room, and sat on the edge of my bed. That's when I realized this was never going to change. No matter how hard I tried, I would never be enough for them. But I made a promise to myself that day. A quiet one that I held deep inside my heart. One day, I'll buy something they'll never forget. After Chloe got her car, things just got worse for me. Slowly, I started noticing how I was left out of everything. Family dinners, weekend outings, even simple things like movie nights. They'd all leave without me and act like it was normal. When I asked where they were going, Mom would say, "It's more of a fun thing. You wouldn't enjoy it anyway." It hurt, but I stopped asking. At home, I became more like a maid than a daughter. I did the dishes, cleaned the bathrooms, vacuumed the house, and even did laundry for everyone. Chloe would toss her clothes on the floor and yell for me to pick them up. If I didn't, she'd run to Mom and say I was being difficult. Mom always took her side. School wasn't any better. Chloe had a big group of friends and made sure they all knew I was weird and bitter. She told people I was jealous of her, that I tried to steal her things, even though it was the other way around. I could feel people whispering when I passed by in the hallways. A few kids who used to talk to me stopped completely. At home, every time I tried to defend myself, it backfired. Chloe wouldn't lie, my mom would say. "You're just looking for attention." My dad barely looked up from his newspaper. I felt invisible, unless they needed something. So I started doing something for myself. I got a part-time job at a small diner after school. It wasn't glamorous. I wore an apron and cleaned tables and poured coffee, but it gave me something no one else had ever offered me: independence. I started saving every dollar. Chloe laughed when she found out. "You're working at that greasy place? How embarrassing." Even my mom scoffed, saying I should be focusing on being normal, instead of wasting time with small jobs. One night, I came home late from work and heard my mom on the phone in the kitchen. She didn't know I was standing behind the door. I'll never forget what she said. "She's just not like Chloe. She won't ever amount to anything." I didn't make a sound. I just stood there frozen. Then I quietly went to my room, lay in bed, and stared at the ceiling for hours. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just let it all sink in. From that moment on, I stopped trying to be noticed. I stopped trying to please them. I worked harder, saved more, and kept every bit of my plan to myself. My 18th birthday came and went like any other ordinary day. No balloons, no cake, no card, not even a happy birthday from my parents. I woke up, made breakfast for everyone, and went to work like usual. At the diner, one of the waitresses, Maria, surprised me with a cupcake and a candle. She sang a little off-key, but it was the warmest moment I had all day. I smiled, but deep inside it stung. That same week, I overheard Mom talking to Chloe about her upcoming graduation. She was already planning Chloe's gift, a trip to Europe, and mentioned they'd open a college fund for her. I stood in the hallway, invisible, holding a basket of laundry, listening to how easily they threw their support and money at Chloe while pretending I didn't exist. That night, I came home early from work. My shift had ended sooner than expected, and I felt drained. I thought maybe I'd get some rest, but the moment I opened my bedroom door, my heart dropped. My drawers were pulled out. My lockbox, where I kept all my savings, was wide open. Empty. I checked everywhere. Every envelope, every pocket, every hiding spot. Gone. All of it. 2 years of tips, saved dollar by dollar, wiped out. I stormed into the living room where Chloe was laughing on the couch, scrolling through her phone. "Did you go into my room?" I asked, voice shaking. She didn't even look up. "Relax. I borrowed some cash. I'll pay you back, eventually." I turned to my parents. "She stole everything I had." "That was my money." Mom shrugged. "It's just money, Haley. You probably weren't going to do anything important with it anyway." My dad didn't say a word, just turned the TV volume up. Something inside me broke. The tears came, hot and angry. I stormed to my room and slammed the door. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. I just sat there, heart pounding, staring at the empty lockbox. I didn't have much, but I had enough to walk away. By 2 a.m., I had packed a duffel bag, just clothes, my phone, charger, and the little bit of money I had left in my wallet. Before I walked out, I left a note on my pillow. "You'll miss me when I'm rich." And I meant it. I didn't know where I'd go yet, or how I'd make it, but I knew I couldn't stay one more second in a house that never saw me, never heard me, and never believed in me. That night, I walked out the front door without looking back. The night I left, I took the first bus out of town. I didn't have a plan, but I had a name, Aunt Linda. She was my mom's older sister, but they hadn't spoken in years. All I knew was that she lived in a small town about 200 miles away, and she had once sent me a birthday card when I was little. It was the only family kindness I remembered, and I clung to it like a lifeline. When I showed up at her doorstep, exhausted and scared, Aunt Linda didn't ask 100 questions. She just opened the door, pulled me into a warm hug, and said, "I was wondering when you'd show up." She gave me a room, made me hot soup, and treated me like I mattered. For the first time in a long time, I felt safe. The next few months were anything but easy. I took a job as a waitress at a local diner during the day and cleaned offices at night. The money barely covered my bus fare and cheap meals, but I was determined to never go back. Aunt Linda refused to take rent from me, saying, "Just promise me you'll build something better." I enrolled in community college and started taking night classes in business. I had always been curious about how companies ran, how money worked, and now I was finally learning. I spent late nights with textbooks and early mornings scrubbing floors. I didn't have time for friends, parties, or rest, but every day, I grew a little stronger. One weekend at a garage sale, I found a dusty old coffee table for $5. I cleaned it up, painted it, and sold it online for $30. That's when something clicked. I started visiting thrift stores and junkyards, buying broken or ugly furniture, fixing it, and flipping it for a small profit. It wasn't glamorous, but it gave me a sense of control. I tracked every penny I spent and earned, learned basic budgeting, and even started reading books about investing and small businesses. There were nights I cried from pure exhaustion, and days when it all felt hopeless. But then I'd remember my mom's words, "You won't amount to anything," and I'd get back up. Because every table I fixed, every dollar I saved, every test I passed, it all brought me one step closer to proving them wrong. By the time I turned 23, the girl who once cried in silence while scrubbing diner tables had turned into a woman with a vision. After years of flipping furniture and learning everything I could about interior design, I finally decided to take a risk. With a small amount of savings, a laptop, and a handmade logo, I launched my own home decor brand. I started small, just a few custom pieces listed online, a booth at the weekend craft market, and some flyers around town. It wasn't fancy, but people began to notice. My style was unique, upcycled furniture with warmth, charm, and personality. One customer turned into 5, then 10. They started tagging me on social media, showing off their spaces. Word spread fast in our little community. Every item I sold, I reinvested. I used my kitchen as a workspace and my aunt's backyard as a sanding station. It was chaotic, messy, and beautiful. Then one day, everything changed. A man named Mark stopped by my market booth. He was in his late 30s, wore a dusty work jacket, and had paint on his hands. He introduced himself as a local contractor and said, "My clients have been raving about your pieces. Ever thought about expanding?" I blinked, unsure if this was real. "Honestly? Every day." He smiled. "I've got an empty warehouse and a cluttered office. You help me with one, I'll loan you the other." It sounded too good to be true, but it wasn't. Mark was honest, kind, and saw potential in my work. I redesigned his office, and in return, I finally had a space big enough to handle bulk orders. That's when my business took off. I brought on 2 part-time helpers, young women like me, looking for a chance. Orders came in faster. Local magazines started featuring my story. I built my credit, applied for a small business grant, and started thinking bigger. At 25, while driving through a quiet neighborhood, I saw it. A rundown estate, half hidden behind overgrown trees and chipped gates. Most people would have driven past. But I saw something else, a future. I did the math, ran the numbers, and applied for a loan. Quietly, carefully. And to my shock, I got approved. When I stood in front of the gates with the keys in my hand, I felt every sleepless night, every insult, every moment I had been told I wasn't enough rise to the surface. This wasn't just a house. It was proof. Proof that I wasn't nothing. Proof that I could build something real. And deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. The estate was falling apart when I bought it, peeling paint, cracked windows, weeds taller than me. But I saw through the damage. Every broken wall felt like a challenge I was finally strong enough to face. I poured everything into it, my time, my savings, my heart. It took nearly a year, but slowly the place came back to life. I designed every room with care. Vintage chandeliers, reclaimed wood floors, hand-painted tiles. Each corner told a story. My story, one of struggle, survival, and growth. When it was finished, I stood in the entryway, sunlight streaming through the tall windows, and I cried. Not because I was sad, but because, for the first time, I felt proud. I wasn't that girl who got left out anymore. I had built something permanent, something beautiful, and I did it without the people who told me I'd never matter. The best part, Aunt Linda moved in with me. Her laugh filled the halls. Her kindness made the space feel like home. We cooked dinner together, danced in the kitchen, and watched movies under soft blankets in the living room. For the first time, I felt safe. I felt seen. To celebrate, I threw a small housewarming party. Nothing fancy, just friends, neighbors, and a few people who had supported me along. Someone snapped a group photo in front of the house, and without thinking much of it, they posted it online and tagged me. Hours later, my phone buzzed with a message from a number I hadn't seen in years. My mother. Her text said, "Didn't know lying and running away could get you a mansion." I stared at it, fingers hovering over the screen. A part of me wanted to lash out, to remind her of the years of neglect, the stolen money, the nights I went hungry while they dined out. But I didn't. I didn't need to explain myself anymore. So I walked into my kitchen, set my house keys on the marble counter I had worked so hard to afford, and took a picture. No caption, no words, just the keys, on the counter, in my home. Then I sent it back to her, and for the first time, the silence that followed felt like victory. The knock on the gate came early in the morning. I was sipping coffee in the sunroom, watching birds dance in the garden when I saw them, my parents and Chloe, standing on the other side of the gate like ghosts from a past I'd buried. Chloe looked different. Her hair was messy, her designer clothes replaced by something faded and wrinkled. My father stood stiffly behind her, eyes down, shoulders slumped. And my mother, well, she still held her chin high, but there were deep lines in her face I hadn't seen before. She looked tired, defeated. I didn't rush. I took another sip of coffee, set it down, and walked slowly outside. The gate separated us. Me on the inside of a home I built, them on the outside looking in. "Haley," my mother said first, her voice unnaturally soft. "Sweetheart, we were just passing through and thought we'd see you." I raised an eyebrow. "Passing through? 200 miles. She gave a tight smile. "Well, things have been a little difficult lately." My father cleared his throat. I lost my job last year. Chloe's had a rough time at school." Chloe looked away, arms crossed, lips tight. She didn't say a word. I stayed silent. "We were hoping," my mother continued, "that maybe you could help us. Just a small loan. Or maybe we could stay for a little while. Just until we get back on our feet." A gust of wind blew through the trees. Funny how quiet the world gets when everything inside you is roaring. They wanted help. After years of treating me like a burden, of mocking my dreams, stealing my savings, and telling me I'd never amount to anything, they were here. At my house. Asking for my help. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I simply said, "Wait here." I turned and walked back inside, closed the door, and sat down at the table. Aunt Linda glanced up from her crossword. "What's wrong?" "They're outside," I said. She didn't need to ask who. Her eyes softened. "What are you going to do?" I looked out the window at the three people who used to be my entire world. And now, they were just strangers standing at a gate I owned. "I haven't decided," I said. And I meant it. I could feel the weight of every memory pressing on me. Every cruel word, every slammed door, every empty birthday. But I also felt something else. Choice. For the first time in my life, I got to decide how the story went. So I let them wait. I opened the gate slowly and gestured for them to come in. No smile, no warmth, just quiet control. They stepped in hesitantly, looking around like they couldn't believe what they were seeing. The marble floors, the tall ceilings, the art on the walls. Everything screamed success. My success. We sat in the living room. I stayed standing. "So," I began, folding my arms. "You want help?" My mother straightened her back. "We just need a little support. A loan. Or a place to stay until things settle." Chloe flopped onto the edge of the couch like she owned the place. "It's not a big deal, Haley. Just until Mom and Dad get things together." I ignored her. "You remember my 18th birthday?" I asked, my voice calm. "No party. No cake. Not even a card. Deborah rolled her eyes slightly. We were going through things. Money was tight, but you had enough for Chloe's Europe trip. And her car. And her shopping. We did what we could, my father muttered. We did our best. I looked straight at him. Your best was letting Mom call me worthless. Your best was watching Chloe steal my savings and doing nothing. Chloe scoffed. Oh my God, you're still on that? I turned to her. You spread rumors about me in school. You laughed when Mom told me I'd never be anything. She shifted in her seat, suddenly quiet. I looked at my mother. And you? You told me I didn't deserve anything. You said I'd never amount to anything. Deborah pursed her lips. That's not exactly how. Don't. I raised a hand. Don't twist it. I remember every word. Every silence. Every time you made me feel like I didn't belong in my own home. The room fell silent. My voice didn't shake. My hands didn't tremble. I felt no anger, no sadness, just clarity. I stepped back and gestured toward the door. You don't deserve this house. You don't deserve a place in my peace. Deborah stood, red in the face. After everything we've been through, this is how you treat your family? I met her eyes. You told me I didn't deserve anything. And now you don't deserve me. They walked out without another word. I followed them to the gate, opened it, and watched them step through. Then I closed it, gently but firmly. And this time I locked it. The days after the confrontation felt quiet, but not the kind of silence that hurts. It was peace. Real peace. The kind I never had growing up. I woke up every morning in my own home, with sunlight pouring in through tall windows, the smell of fresh coffee drifting from the kitchen where Aunt Linda always hummed while reading her newspaper. My phone buzzed with new orders, client messages, and business opportunity. But the best part? No one raised their voice. No one made me feel small. My friends, real friends, came by often. People who respected me, who showed up because they wanted to, not because they were obligated. We had dinners on the patio, talked about dreams and business, laughed until midnight. My world was finally mine, and it was full of loyalty, laughter, and light. One afternoon, I took a different route from the warehouse and found myself near my old neighborhood. On a whim, I turned the wheel and drove slowly past the house I used to call home. It looked smaller now. The paint was chipped, the lawn overgrown. A for sale sign stood crooked in the yard. I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel angry. I just felt free, like that house no longer held any power over me. As I pulled up to a red light near the corner store, a voice called out from the sidewalk. Haley. It was Jenna, a girl from high school who used to sit behind me in history class. We caught up quickly, just small talk at first, until she leaned in a little and said, I heard about everything. Your sister still blames you, tells everyone you abandoned the family and left them to suffer. I smiled. She can tell her story however she wants. I know mine. Jenna blinked. You're not mad. No, I said, shaking my head. That part of my life doesn't get to control me anymore. We hugged goodbye, and I drove off without looking back. In the months that followed, I started something new, something that felt like a full circle. I began mentoring young women trying to escape their own toxic homes, offering support, resources, even a job when I could. Some of them reminded me of myself at 16, quiet, overlooked, unsure of their worth. I made sure they knew they mattered, that they could build something from nothing, that they could leave, heal, and thrive. Because I did. And if I could do it, so could they. Years passed, and life kept growing in ways I never expected. By 30, I had expanded my business into 3 states, opened a design studio, and launched an online platform that taught young women how to build their own brands. I kept my story quiet, never looking for sympathy. I didn't need to relive the pain to prove I'd made it. But one day, a journalist from a local business magazine reached out. She'd heard whispers about the girl who came from nothing and built an empire. I hesitated, then finally agreed. When the article came out, it wasn't about revenge. It was about resilience. They called me a self-made success. The photos showed me standing in front of my restored estate, surrounded by the women I mentored, smiling. The story resonated with so many, not because I'd won, but because I'd healed. That same year, Aunt Linda passed peacefully in her sleep. I cried like a child. She had been my safe place, my guide, my mother in every way that mattered. In her will, she left me the land she grew up on, 6 acres of open field and memories. I knew exactly what to do with it. We turned it into Linda's Haven, a transitional home and creative studio for young women escaping unsafe homes. Some came with nothing but a backpack and pain in their eyes. We gave them hope, tools, and room to grow. I told each one, you don't have to be your past. One quiet afternoon, I was in a grocery store picking up flowers for the center when I heard a sharp voice behind me. No, you can't have that. Stop asking. You don't deserve toys when you act like this. I turned around and saw a woman pulling a little girl by the arm. The girl looked no older than 7, her eyes full of fear and confusion. My heart twisted. When the woman moved on, I walked over to the checkout line where the girl had left the small stuffed bunny she'd wanted. I bought it. Then I knelt beside her near the door and gently held it out. "This is for you," I said softly. She looked up at me, confused. "Why?" I smiled. "Because you deserve everything. Don't ever let anyone tell you otherwise." She took the bunny and hugged it tight. That moment stayed with me, because maybe, just maybe, I had broken the cycle. Not with revenge, but with love. What about you? Do you think Haley made the right choice by cutting ties, or should she have given her family another chance? I'd really love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if stories like this speak to you, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next.